All right, hello and welcome to Wednesday. I am super excited for our guest today, Dr. Mihaela Telecan. I'm going to have her tell you more about herself. She's a registered dietitian, a health coach, and an author of a new book, which she released maybe 6 months ago. And she is here to talk with us today about another controversial topic in nutrition, which is healthy fats. So I'm just going to start with that introduction. Mihaela, if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of your journey on how you got to where you are, how you got into working with nutrition and food, and maybe even stepping into how you decided to write this book.
Yes, thank you for having me on, and thank you to all the wonderful ladies that are coming live and will watch the recording. I commend you for taking charge of your health. This is one first step into your health transformation journey. Yes, like you said, I'm a registered dietitian after I moved to United States. Before, when I lived in Romania, I actually studied veterinary medicine. And I did work as a vet in Romania for, I believe, 5 years or so. And then when I moved to United States, I realized during my school that was not my passion. It was a good paying job, but that was a job. And I did not want to be in a job. I wanted to live my purpose and follow my passion for health and human health and performance, I should say. So when I moved to United States, I chose to go back to school, but to do something else, and that was nutrition. So after I completed a master's in nutrition, I sat for my registration exam. Then of course, did not love being a registered dietitian, I must say. I was like, oh no, second time I'm doing a school that's not for me. But then I realized that was just a necessary step to be a licensed professional, so I could actually help people heal through foods, which is my passion. So I took some courses after I finished my master's with the Institute for Functional Medicine, with Mind-Body Medicine, with Dr. Natasha in the GAPS protocol. I also did certification in diabetes. So I continue to study and to learn and to apply to myself many modalities, and then distilled it into what I work with right now in my practice, which is using a whole foods, ancestral approach to health and healing. And I say ancestral because I really like to go back to 200,000 years ago and try to imagine how our ancestors lived, not only eat, but lived. What was their lifestyle? What was their food like? How did they have access to food? All that. Because there's a difference between ancestral and traditional living. And traditional goes 200, 300 years ago, when people started to ferment foods and they had, the convenience of growing their own food, basically, with the agriculture. And then industrial era came, and that really made us forget about traditions and forget about ancestral living. So I feel like I'm coming to bring people back to not what is common sense, but ancestral sense. Common sense is kind of defined by what we know, right? So I'm trying to push people a little bit further back in history and try to use that kind of logic when it comes to, the food choices we make and the way we live today. So that's kind of my journey.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. And how did you come to writing this book, which will lead us into the topic that we're going to get into a minute? But how did you come to deciding to write this particular book?
Well, it's pretty much, first of all, I see so much information out there that is conflicting. And it hurts me because people get confused and conflicted, and they can't take action because they don't know which way to go. Not to say that my book is going to solve the nutrition conflicting problem of the world, but I feel like it's one tool that if someone is willing to take the time to read it, I have the book here, it's a pretty big book, it can raise the awareness to how important food and lifestyle, but mainly food. The book is mainly about the food, is when it comes to the way you wake up every morning, the way you run your day, the way your hair looks like, the way your skin looks like. Everything is really based on what we eat, how we absorb, what we store, and then what we are able to use from. It's like this cycle. So basically, that's why I wrote the book. And I said this when I did my signature talk here at the local library. I said, I chose this because it's a sexy title. But it really should be healing with foods, because that's what it is. It's not only fat. Fat is just the one isolated macronutrient from the food we eat. In the end, we eat food. We don't eat, cherry pick macronutrients.
Right, absolutely.
It's really about how we heal with food, how food affects our hormones that regulate metabolism, how food affects our genetic material, how food controls inflammation, how food impacts the state of the gut health. When you put it all together and you apply the principles that I did not invent anything, I'm not a researcher, is what I've learned and I gather over the course of the years by, again, studying, applying with my clients. I formulated my own way of applying healing with foods to human health and performance.
Absolutely. In fact, your website is Healing with Whole Foods, right? Yeah. So
Healing with Foods is when in 2012, when I was doing my coaching program with IAN, and that's when I started my business. And, anytime I try to go away from that, I realize that I have to come back to it, because it really boils down to that.
Yeah,
it's fermented foods, it's this and that, but in the end, it's foods.
Yes, I agree. I know that's my journey as well is how we healed, mostly my daughter and myself just through whole food eating, and really just reducing inflammation was a very healing journey. So I'd like to take a moment to invite you to share something with us about you outside of your work, so that we can just get to know who Mihaela is as a person outside of work.
Well, I'm pretty much the same inside the work and outside the work. I love the beach and I love the sun. So if you follow me, you probably see me live streaming from the beach in bikinis, from the river. Anytime I can be outdoors with sand in my feet and sweaty body, I love it. So I just like to enjoy life. I feel like a rich life is having time to do the things I love, to spend time with my son, to be outdoors, to be with my husband, to be with my family. That's why I want to be healthy. Let's put it that way. So I love riding the bicycle. That's one thing that, unfortunately, I kind of gave up since I moved from Atlantic Beach. Mm-hmm. And I did my last century bike ride in 2015. I have not been on my racing bike, which is kind of sad, but it's also risky here. I love riding the bike, but I don't want to be hit by a car. So,
can you share with us where you live now?
Now I'm actually in Cocoa Beach. It's near Melbourne, very close to NASA. I can see when the rockets launch, which is pretty cool. The windows go, oh no, it's a rocket launch. It's almost like, the train is like a train station, but this is a NASA station. It's pretty cool. And it's a surf. You would love it here because you surf. Mm-hmm. It's a surf community. You walk in the little downtown, everybody's in bikinis. I love that. Like, no makeup, no fancy clothes, just easy going. So that's something that I absolutely enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So I wanted to just start with the invitation for you to talk about your topic today, which you are going to share with us, which is about healthy fats and their role in our health and wellness, our well-being, and also how they give us energy, how they can help not just energy throughout the day, but they can just help with performance, and any other thing that is related to healthy fats that you want to cover. And as you go, if there's anyone listening on the call that has questions, please just type your questions and we'll be sure to answer them when she's done with her talk. So what can you share with us about healthy fats? What are the three most important things, I guess, that we can learn from understanding the importance of having a healthy fats in our diet?
Very good question. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, especially if you think I go too long. So first of all, there's a very well, you said it, healthy fats versus non-healthy fats. So basically, fats that, again, our ancestors would recognize are fats that are coming with the foods we eat without involving any human processing. So if we think about, that would be the fat that comes with the meat, the fat that's in avocado, the fat that's in nut. Those are like part of food, so they are not processed. Then we have some minimally processed fats like butter. It's extract from the whole food, which is milk, right? Or coconut oil, it's extract from the coconut. Olive oil, it's an extract. But these are minimally processed. This is something that our ancestors, our people 300 years ago were able to do it by pressing, right? Like a cold press extraction. Now from that, we move to the fats that we are used to seeing in supermarkets today, and everybody thinks they are the fats to use, like the canola and soybean oil and corn oil and all the vegetable oils. Those are the fats that we want to stay away from it. So if you do whole foods, by definition, you wouldn't want to consume those fats. But if you're not aware of the fact that these are not whole foods, it's good to know that these vegetable oils, not only they're highly processed, but they're polyunsaturated fats. Those are fats that are extremely sensitive to exposure of sunlight, oxygen, temperature. They get damaged very easily. So not only that they are processed, like when you get them, they're already like a damaged food, but now you add further damage and oxidation to it by using it in cooking. So it's like the ultimate inflammatory food you can put in your body. So if we distinguish, okay, these are the good fats, coconut oil, and I know coconut oil is getting a lot of bad press lately because it's saturated fat and all that. You know, this will continue to go on and on. Coconut oil is not a bad fat. It is a saturated fat. This is how tropical fats are for a reason. They have to resist high temperature. Coconut grows in the tropics where it's hot all the time. If it wouldn't have a saturated fat, it would go bad, rinse it very easily. So people that would live in the tropics and have access to only that fat, naturally, they would basically die by eating rancid, damaged fats, right? So it's so if you eat local and seasonal, and you think about why would coconut oil be saturated, is because it's supposed to resist to high temperature, then you can think, oh, this is what nature gives me in this area of the country. If you live in Alaska, yeah, the whale fat is the one you want, because that's the fat that's polyunsaturated and resists to it's in cold. It's it makes the fish survive cold environments. It's an anti-inflammatory fat. Is the fat that you need to keep yourself warm. I don't know if that makes any sense. So good fats can be embraced, but I want to step back a little bit and just explain food, because again, these are it's an isolated macronutrient. When we think or talk about food, we think of the taste, right? Like how food satisfies our taste buds, which is normal. We want to enjoy what we eat. And then we often think about calories, right? We want to count those calories. God forbid we go over a certain number and what is going to happen. But calories are not everything, because 100 calories of orange juice will have a different metabolic effect than 100 calories of, I don't know, chicken, than 100 calories of pure coconut oil. And that it comes down with how macronutrients are impacting energy metabolism. Because so those I gave examples of the three macronutrients: the carbohydrates we have in fruits or in grains or in legumes. All those are carbohydrates, right? And then is the example of protein, would be meat, animal protein, and then the example of fat. So when each one of those interact with a different hormone in the body. When you eat the carbohydrate that absorbs mainly as glucose, it triggers an insulin response. Insulin tells your body that there is time of plenty, therefore let's save. We have food coming in, let's save for when we don't have food coming in. That's what our ancestors went through when they survived, lived here on earth with no supermarket. So that's the message the food gives to the body. So this insulin, when it's present in your blood, it will make you save fat. Doesn't matter if the insulin is triggered by the banana or by the bean or by the bread or by the potato. It doesn't matter. The message is the same. Let's store fat. Then you eat the chicken or the egg or the fish, and that tells the opposite hormone of insulin, we don't really have fuel coming in. Let's break down some fat for fuel, because protein is structural. Body doesn't want to use protein to just generate energy for its own function. Protein goes to produce hormones, to produce enzymes, to build up your muscle, to keep your hair nice and shiny. That's the main role of protein, or amino acids. So it has the opposite effect of carbohydrate. It stimulates the glucagon, that's the name of the hormone, and that tells your body we need to produce our own energy, and that means burning fat. Then you have the fat. Let's say pure fat, olive oil, butter, coconut oil, even avocado, we can put it in this. This, when you eat this, is like the body doesn't get any message. It's like no food is coming. You feel good because you have the energy, but metabolically speaking, you are neutral. So in a neutral state, if you go too long by just eating fat, the body will be like, we need to burn. We can't store anything. So that doesn't slow down your metabolism. You continue to burn fat for fuel. So that's how food interacts with energy metabolism. Those hormones that regulate what happens with what we eat. Do we store it or do we burn it? Now, I wanted to say one more thing. When we store, because this is also important, we have an ability to store two sources of fuel: glycogen and fat in our body. Glycogen is the way we store carbohydrates, and that's like a very small tank. It's a limited amount. We store it in the liver and we store it in the muscle. Mm-hmm. Fat is like you have an endless tank where you can save energy in the form of fatty acids. So the more foods that trigger insulin we eat, the more we gonna store. What can we store the most? Fat. So often I say carbs are fat in disguise, because you eat carbs and you can only store so many and you can only burn so many. I mean, if you're training for the Ironman, you burn a great deal so you can eat more. But for most people sitting all day in front of a screen, it translates into fat accumulation. So over time, you gain just 1 pound a year. 10 years later, you're 10 pounds heavier, and then 20 pounds heavier. But most people gain more than a pound a year. They gain more, like on average 5 to 7 pounds a year. So when you look back 20 years later, you are like 40 pounds heavier, and you can't get rid of it. But that is because the signal that the food you eat gives to your body. The body just does its job. You give me this, insulin goes up, tells your body to store. So now when it comes to fuel, what body can use as source of energy, everybody knows carbohydrates are source of energy. And it's correct, but it's not only carbohydrates are source of energy. Fatty acids are source of energy. That's why we store them in these two forms, right? Glycogen and fat. And then we have a byproduct of burning fatty acids, which are called ketone bodies. So it's 3 sources of fuel that the body can have access to it if we allow it to. When we eat carbs, the body will want to burn carbs. That's the easy way out. That's the safe way out, because if you eat glucose, foods that accumulate as sugar in your blood, you've got to remove it from the blood. Otherwise, you are left with hyperglycemia and eventually diabetes. That's not sustainable with life, right? You don't want to have, you can only have at the most like 1 teaspoon of sugar in your entire bloodstream in your body. And how many teaspoons of sugar people eat in one meal? Way more than one. Mm-hmm. So the body has to get rid of. Some is burned for energy, some is stored as glycogen, a lot of it is stored as fat. Now, think of you relying on carbohydrates as your main and only source of energy as being on a campfire, and you want, around the campfire, right? And you want to have a fire burning. You have wood, and you have, I don't know, some bigger piece of wood. Okay. Carbohydrates are the equivalent of hay. Mm-hmm. You have to put it on all the time to keep the fire going. When you you start the fire with hay, good, but now you want to add some thicker wood that will burn slower and last longer. So that is when you transition from burning carbs to burning fat. Mm-hmm. And then as you start to burn fat, you bring in this other more sustainable fuel is the char,
Charcoal?
Right, but when they are still burning, char, right? The people cook on it. They put on the grill. It's char, right? That's the name.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't grill.
I know, neither I, and I can't think of the word. Anyway, so now you're using all 3 sources of fuel. Hay in the beginning to start. Okay, once you have the fire going, you want to be using a more sustainable fuel, and that's fat. Now here's the thing. The only time we feel like the athlete hits the wall or the person crashes at their desk, like at, 11 o'clock and 3 p.m. is because the brain lacks fuel. Brain is like the master computer. If the brain has fuel, you have energy all day. Now, the brain doesn't care if it's glucose fuel or another fuel. As long as there is fuel available, you're not going to have any panic attack that crashing, blood sugars dropping. Here's the thing. The brain cannot use fatty acids. They're too big. They can't cross from the blood into the brain. That blood-brain barrier prevents that from happening. Mm-hmm. However, the byproduct of burning fatty acids, the ketone bodies, have free flow to the brain. So the body has 3 fuels available: glucose, fatty acids, ketones. The brain can use glucose and ketones. So if you have these 2 available all the time, you are not going to crash. You're going to have energy like you are on drugs. I'm not kidding. And when I fast, when I do like a prolonged fast, it's like wild. I really feel like I cannot turn off. It's like crazy. And then fatty acids different, like the heart muscle prefers to use fatty acids for fuel, not glucose.
Yeah.
So every tissue of the body has a preference for fuel, but all of them can use, except for the brain, can use glucose and fatty acids. Brain can only use glucose and ketones, all three across the board, right? All tissues of the body. The exception is brain can only use glucose and ketone bodies. And we have three tissues of the body that cannot use anything but glucose. And that is the retina of the eye, is the red blood cell, and it's one tissue cell in the liver. Outside of that, everybody can use, like I said. Now, what happens with this that can only use glucose? The body manufactures its own glucose. So you don't have to worry about it. If you run out of that stored glycogen, my husband, he always calls me at this time. Okay, he was understand that I'm busy. So you produce your own glucose is the process. Liver does all that. Liver breaks the fat into, so liver, and yesterday was talked a lot about liver. Liver is this like an organ that you really want to cherish and nourish.
Yes.
It detoxifies you, it converts food into energy, it does it all. So the liver stores this glycogen. When you run out of this, the liver will produce glucose from non-glucose sources like amino acids, the glycerol that comes down from burning fatty acids. So you don't have to worry about that. In other words, there is no essentiality when it comes to carbohydrates as a macronutrient, as it is essentiality as it comes to amino acids. You've got to eat those 9 essential amino acids the body cannot produce. And you've got to eat the fatty acids, the essential fatty acids, 3 and 6, the body cannot produce. Mm-hmm. So there is a misconception out there that says, oh, you cannot live without carbs. No, you can. The body can produce its own. Do you have to go 0 carbs? Most people don't. So now, how do you translate this in real life? Let's say you need to lose weight. You're in a state of excess. What do you want? You want to tell your body that it's okay to burn its own fat for fuel. The signal, so to do that, you've got to manipulate those hormones we talked about. Insulin has to drop, glucagon and other counter-regulatory hormones will be up, and that will signal your body, we don't have fuel, we've got to burn what we've stored. First, it's going to burn through the liver glycogen. The muscle glycogen only is used by the muscle. So if you exercise, it's going to go. It doesn't go in the whole body. But the liver takes care of those crucial organs that can only use glucose, right? And for the brain at first. And then, as you start burning fat, fatty acids fuel the cells of the body. Ketone bodies are produced and they fuel the brain. You have energy, you start to melt your own fat. It doesn't melt like ice, okay? So don't think that next week you're gonna be 30 pounds lighter. It takes time, but people lose pretty rapidly when they embrace this lower carbohydrate, higher fat way of eating. So for you not to feel deprived or to have your stomach growling on empty, because you could fast, okay? It's perfectly safe, but you wanna eat, right? So for you, you would reduce the amount of foods that absorb as glucose and trigger an insulin response. And here's, first of all, all your whites, which the program talks about, you know, all your white flours and of course sugar and potatoes and rices and that. Mm-hmm. And then you increase the fat. Once one goes up, the other one goes down. So to make peace with fat, you've got to make peace with the fact that carbohydrates are also not your best food choice ever.
Right.
And you know, at different times of your life, you need more or less. This is like a fine tuning that goes over time. As you lose the excess weight, you get rid of chronic diseases, diabetes possibly, you reduce inflammation, you become more physically active, you may be able to tolerate more carbohydrates. Each individual has its own unique carbohydrate tolerance. How much carbs can you eat without beginning to store fat? Just maintaining if you are at your ideal weight and having endless energy, independent of what fuel is available. You develop what we call metabolic flexibility. When the body is happy to use what's available with ease, you don't feel it, you don't have the crashes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how fat plays into the metabolic health and energy. Like an athlete that wants to run, like the ultra runners, 100 miles, or the Ironman. If you go and research, most of this in ultra endurance athletes, they go low carb, high fat. Why? Because even a skinny athlete holds over 40,000 calories of energy in the fat they have on their body, which is like, I don't know, 10% maybe of their body. So imagine somebody that has 30% body weight as fat. Yeah. They go like the longest, and I put the example in the book. The longest recorded fast was in 1970s, I think, was a young man. He fasted for over a year under medical supervision, but he lived on its own fat with some minerals and vitamins, because we get from food micronutrients, vitamins, minerals. It's not only the macros and the calories we get from food. We get nutrients, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to bring, like, to draw the conclusion, it's okay to eat less.
Yeah, I talk a lot about quality over quantity, and I know for me personally, my personal experience of being vegetarian and even vegan for a period of time is that I consumed a lot of carbohydrates at that time, and I had a lot more body weight than I do now, and I was constantly hungry. And now I know I actually don't even choose to eat that many carbs, because actually when I do, all they do is make me hungry.
Exactly. It's the cycle.
Yeah.
And I can testify for that. I was vegan and vegetarian, and I ate at least every 2 hours. I would have anxiety leaving the house without a big bag of snacks. God forbid, I would crash. And I always wanted to eat whole food, so I wouldn't go to get anything. So I always had to carry big bags of snacks. Now,
so what would your go-to? So that's a really good question, because you can certainly choose your source of protein in whatever way works for you. But what's important is, at least what I feel, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, is that choosing the snack that has protein and a healthy fat, for me, like cashews are really great for me. I'd like to ask you, what is your favorite way to combine foods before working out? And what would your favorite go-to snack be that keeps you energized throughout the day?
So I like working out fasted. So I really kick into the fat burning and just let my body use fat and ketones for fuel. But of course, not everybody is willing to do that. So if you have any snack before workout, it's okay to have that. That's when you can have a little bit more carbs, because you are going to actually burn them. You will stop your own fat burning during that exercise. However, depending on the type of exercise, we have that post-burn phase where your body will go and burn your own fat. So a lot, like you can do something that's light and it doesn't get the stomach heavy. A green shake that has a little bit of fruit, like berries, and maybe a little bit of fat in there, whether it's from almond butter or just some flax oil and some greens. You blend it together, you have that. So it has a little bit of carbs, a little bit of fat, and not too much protein. And then after workout, it's more important to not worry about your glycogen replenishment as much as to give the amino acids to rebuild the muscle, and to stay in the fat burning, not to have too much carbs, actually.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, because that, especially weight loss is the goal if you want to lose weight. For instance, I remember when I did that 100-mile bike ride, I had a bulletproof coffee before. I went for 100 miles. I did not stop. I did not get off the bike to any rest stops. I had enough water with me to just pedal for whatever many hours that was. I don't remember, 5 hours, whatever. And then afterwards, I had coconut water. You know, I was okay to have some carbs because all the glycogens were depleted anyway, and I wanted the potassium to and fermented juice, or a great post-workout beverage is meat and bone stock, because then you have the salt, you have all the minerals that leach from bones and meat when you make it homemade, and the amino acids to replenish your muscle. Fermented beverages are also great after workout, and especially with salt, because when we work out intensely and we sweat a lot, we lose sodium. So electrolyte balance is very important.
So thank you for that. I love everything that you're talking about. I think we could probably talk about this for a week straight, specifically this topic. It's such a great topic. I do want to ask one more question. I know our time is coming to an end, and ladies on the call, if you have any questions, please let me know. Can you answer the question in relation to our metabolism? And there's a big misunderstanding that eating less and eating fat-free things helps you to lose weight. Can you just sort of, and I know that you did talk, I know that you just did talk about that. Could you just tell us in a couple of sentences, like why that doesn't really work towards for the body?
So there's a difference between chronic caloric restriction and fasting, for example. When you chronically eat under your resting energy expenditure and you exercise, so you're always in this caloric deficit, but metabolically you are not, because you still get the carbs that trigger that insulin. So your body gets the signal, I'm getting food but not enough. I've got to slow down my own self to survive until I get again to the level I actually need. So that's what, and there were studies done on the Biggest Losers, where they were severely caloric restricted, or the people that do this ACG diet, like 500 calories a day. So the problem with that is the resting energy expenditure slows down. The body has to survive, so it has to reduce its own maintenance, because that's all, it matches the needs of the body, match what comes to at it.
So you may experience low energy, right? If you're in this state.
Everything slows down. Your body core temperature slows down, your reproductive function, everything. Because you just don't have enough to maintain it all. Hair will fall, you know, hormonal balance goes. Versus fasting or eating high fat, which mimics fasting without the caloric impact. What it does, now it's almost like nothing comes in. I have to heighten my survival. Like my brain has to work better, my muscle has to work better, my heart has to work better. Reproduction, never mind, it will still affect reproduction because it's not needed for survival. So now I have to be sharp and fast so I can get to my next meal. That's ancestral survival mechanism. So that's why during fasting, something suppressed but not resting at a metabolic rate. Brain gets more active. Like when brain is on ketones, you're much more sharper because you have to survive to get your own meal, next meal, or to become someone's meal in the wild, right? Because you always were hunted or you were hunting. So that's why, and of course you can't do this forever, like short periods of fast followed by refeeding actually upgrade the whole body. It's like regenerates the whole, everything that slows down during that time gets rebuilt through the stem cell production that it's stimulated at the end of it. So it's a big difference in terms of the way, because of the hormonal message you get from the presence or absence of macronutrients. I don't know if people, and if you guys want to understand more of this, Dr. Funk, he has his book on fasting, and he explains very well how this happens. Why, when you actually fast, you don't reduce your resting energy expenditure as opposed to long-term caloric restriction. So counting calories, you know, No, in the big scheme of things, yes, the law of thermodynamics works. What comes in must go out. However, when you change the metabolic effect of food, calories have less meaning. So one doesn't have to count calories. They just have to know, I'm eating this whole food. I'm eating a big bunch of vegetables, non-starchy vegetables to get, that's the safe carbs, to get my fibers in, my antioxidants, my phytonutrients. I have a good size of protein, and that has to be matched with the person's need. And the rest is fat, so I'm satisfied.
Right. So I got the question, and I think you just started to answer it. Assuming counting calories is not necessary, is it better to monitor carbs? And what about coffee with bulletproof types fats? Is that okay?
Right. So yes, the answer is yes. You don't have to count calories. You want to keep track of your carbs, basically, to keep it low. So I should say, for most people to get into this place of burning fat as fuel, primarily fat and ketones, they have to restrict total net carbohydrates less than 50 grams a day. That's kind of the mark for most people. If you're physically active, you can go higher, but that's kind of and net carbs means total carbs minus fiber. Let's say if you eat broccoli and cabbage and Brussels sprouts and asparagus and mushrooms, you would look at how much of that meal is fiber and subtract from your total carbs, and that's the actual carbs that absorb as sugar. In the beginning, I tell people, don't even worry about that. That may come in the fine-tuning phase, and if you have diabetes or if you are controlling a neurological disease, just for the average person to get more energy and to lose some weight, just eat as many vegetables as you love to, enough meat or egg or cheese if you do dairy, and put olive oil and avocado, and you're fine.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mihaela. I know our time is coming to an end. I do have a comment from Sherry that says, definitely getting the book after the call. This is fascinating and so enlightening. So before we go, can you please share with us where to find you, your website, your book, and then also share with us what you're offering for everybody who participated, because I know you're sharing a free chapter in your book. In your program. So where can we find you on social media?
So I'm very active on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram, all of them. But YouTube, I don't get so much often to upload my videos in there, but Facebook for sure. And I have a website, healingwithfoods.org, or my name, mihaelatelecan.com. They both go in the same place. I do offer a free chapter, the first chapter that explains this metabolic effect of food, basically. So it's the foundation, but then the book goes into way more than that, of course. So if anybody just wants to see if this is for them, they can grab the free chapter, and then if it's for them, they can buy the book. I think it's a wonderful resource to have. It has a 1-week menu done for you with macros counted, calculated already, and the recipes. Also, I'm offering as a free gift, which I thought goes so well with the spring cleansing, the Sprout to Heal. I really love making sprouts. I felt intimidated for like 7 years. It took me 7 years to put myself together and to say, okay, I'm gonna sprout. And when I learned and I said, oh my gosh, it's so easy, I have to help other people do this, because especially in the winter when you don't have greens, sprouts are such a source of nutrients.
Yes, and I am so excited for that, because I've kind of gone in and out with sprouting, and it is something that I have been intimidated with as well. But when I have done it, I love it. And the amount of energy that you can get from sprouts is just, it's awesome. Like, it's so great. So I'm super excited for you to share that as well. And I know that the ladies on here and everybody who's a part of it is really going to love that as well. So do you have anything else you want to share before we go?
I'm in the group. So if anybody has questions after watching this, I'll be happy to answer or to elaborate. And yeah, follow me on my Facebook, because I go there daily.
Yeah, and I can say that I've actually followed her, spent a lot of time following her. She has really great videos. She's she's had some really amazing recipes. I know I just saw your cashew cheese recipe, which
So good.
I make cashew cheese myself, and your recipe is a little different. I haven't tried it yet, but it's so just really creative ways to get more protein and fermented foods into your diet if you're looking for that. So I highly recommend that you check out her website and see what she has to offer. Check out her book and the Sprout to Heal program. So I'm going to be sending her the list of your name for those of you that signed up, and then she will have your email to send you your Sprout to Heal program. So that'll probably take place after the cleanse is over, just not to overwhelm you. And then she'll also, in that email, she'll send you on how to get your free chapter from her book and any other questions that you might have. But also today, please continue to post your questions for her in the Facebook group today. This is her day to answer questions. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. You have so much to share with so many people. You should start a podcast.
I know, I was thinking about that, but yeah, maybe one day. Now I'm a guest on podcasts, but maybe one day I will do that.
Yeah, I'm just being a guest on podcasts too. I am pre-recording my own. I learned that you have to pre-record them. I tried to start one 2 years ago and I didn't pre-record, and that did not work out so well. So because life happens, you don't know what's going to happen. So
but it's a lot we can talk, and it's I just hope people don't feel overwhelmed or intimidated. It's very doable. I've been eating this way since 2012, starting because I wanted to heal my gut, and then I got into this crazy performance and I was like, wow, life is awesome.
I think you and I both know we feel better now than we did in our 30s or our 20s, and that's a really great way to live.
And I'm 46 this year. I'm not getting any younger, but I feel awesome. I mean, I go to the gym, I work out, like people are like, what? How are you working out?
So it is possible. Absolutely. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, ladies, for being on the phone. All right. Have a good day. Bye.
Same. Bye.